Looks like we're going to SEMA this year. Okay, I get it. I thought it was funny. Somebody just do like, I don't know, hashtag dad jokes in the comment section below, and let's get this thing started. What's up everybody, and welcome to Finally Legal. In this series, we drive the JDM Legends that are, well, finally legal. This is a 1994 Nissan SEMA. Call it a Y32 if you're nerdy, but all you need to know is that it's a classic, big-body, Japanese luxury sedan. The SEMA was built to occupy the space below the massive Nissan President, so this sedan was built for comfort, not speed. But that doesn't mean it's slow. Up front, it's got a 4.1-liter V8 rated at 266 horsepower, and it's even rear-wheel drive. And as you can see, this one has been tastefully modified with some aftermarket wheels and a set of RSR coilovers. Other than that, this car is equipped just as the day it rolled off the assembly line. This example proves that the SEMA is a car that needs to be lowered. Stock, it sits way too high and has tires with way too much sidewall. But here, it's just about perfect. This car sits just low enough, and those long, low body lines feel just right when sat just inches from the ground. Inside, things look showroom fresh. Only those laced oilies might be aftermarket, but even then, they carry the official Nissan branding. All seats front and back get full power adjustment, and there's a ton of room for everyone inside. Things feel elevated, but not extravagant, from the font used for the gauge cluster to the minimal use of faux wood trim. The dash is simple, but gets a tape deck, CD player, and analog clock. Pop-out control panels sit on either side of the steering wheel, and even the rear transmission hump gets a badge of excellence. One thing I really like about the interior is that the seats are cloth. I know it's not kind of typical luxury, especially now everyone's thinking, oh my god, it's got to be leather or some kind of exotic material. But it's a 90-degree day outside right now, and if these seats were leather, I would be suffering some severe burns. And if you've ever been to Japan in the summer, it's brutal. So I think this is actually a smarter choice because you can sit in it, you can drive, and the seats aren't going to kill you. Now what's really surprising, considering that this car doesn't feel all that large on the outside, especially compared to what we consider a mid-size car today, this thing is incredibly spacious. I mean, I'm 6'1", I've got a pretty decent amount of headroom, a great amount of legroom and knee room, and what's even cooler is that the seat can actually recline, or recline-ish. It's not, you know, a full Barco lounger, but hey, push the button, things go forward, starts to lean back, and I can sort of relax. And let's talk controls. You can tell that this SEMA was never intended for export outside of Japan. Every control is in Japanese, so if you're not up on your kanji, there will be a bit of trial and error learning the buttons. But I love the fact that it uses actual buttons, meaning anyone can operate this car's functions on muscle memory alone, kind of negating the need to read anything. So let's talk driving. Yes, that 4.1-liter V8 is rather large, but at just 266 horsepower, it can be considered underpowered by today's standards. And in a world where pickup trucks now get 10-speed auto boxes, the SEMA's 4-speed slush box can seem archaic. But drive it, and you'll find that this powertrain is more than adequate. Now, the SEMA, when new, was available with either an active air suspension or, you know, just an active sport suspension. So the suspension would read what's going on with the road, react accordingly, and give you a smooth ride. If you see these cars stock, they ride taller than Bigfoot, and their sidewall is like a mile wide, or a mile tall, I should say. This, as you can see, is not that. It's on larger much larger wheels, on a much lower profile tire, and it is low and riding static. But it's actually pretty comfortable. I'm really surprised. I thought this would be sort of a punishing ride with how low it is and with how small that sidewall is. But whoever built it did a really good job. But what really shocks me is just how perfect the interior of this car is. It's a 26-year-old car with no squeaks, no rattles, and no other unwanted noises to speak of. The dash looks brand new, and the upholstery is as tight as it was in 1994. There are only 42,000 miles on the clock, and this car was babied for each and every one of them. I personally love this era of Japanese luxury sedans, and I have always wanted a mid-90s VIP styled ride. This SEMA is mighty tempting, But since I have a kid and all, I have exactly $0 to my name. Still, you won't find a car of similar vintage that's this clean, and I'm thinking about selling plasma just so I can make the down payment on this car. As always, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for letting me rant about how much I love this Nissan SEMA. As usual, you know the drill. Hit like, hit subscribe, but more importantly, comment below. Tell us what you want to see. Do you want to see me do more VIP cars like this? Or do you want to see more sports cars? Or do you want to see me comically try and cram my 6.1 frame into a K car? Whatever you want, we'll get it done. So comment below. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. What's up, everybody? It's time to get those van life hashtags ready, because today on Finally Legal, we're driving the Mitsubishi Delica. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Finally Legal. In this series, we drive the JDM Legends that are, well, finally legal. This is the van that launched 1 million influencer accounts. It's the Mitsubishi Delica, and it's here to make your hashtag van life dreams a reality. It's a cross between refrigerator and bro truck, and it's one of those things that can only come from Japan. But the Delica comes from humble beginnings. Its name is a portmanteau of delivery car because it was designed as a delivery car, and the original Delicas looked like smaller JDM versions of that classic VW bus. But as with all work trucks, Mitsubishi created way too many variants of the Delica. And the raddest one is this 3rd gen Delica Star Wagon Super Exceed. This is the last generation of Delica to be made with body-on-frame construction. It's this minivan that the internet goes nuts for, and it's easy to see why. Underneath this minivan body is the chassis of the legendary Mitsubishi Pajero 4x4. So the Delica rides on the same architecture that helped Mitsubishi win more Dakar Rally wins than any other manufacturer. So when you pull your Delica up to its nicely manicured camping spot, you can rest assured that all the other campers will think that you are the embodiment of adventure. And the thing is, it's nice inside, at least for its time. It's got all the comforts you want, like seating for 7, independent climate controls for the rear, and that unique crystal light roof. The interior of this specific Delica is impeccable, showing only minor wear. That no smoking sign, plus the laced doilies on the seats, make me think that this Delica lived its past life possibly shuttling well-to-do tourists around Niseko. But who knows, maybe its last owner was just a neat freak. This van is powered by a 2.5-liter turbo diesel engine that, when new, was rated at 85 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a 4-speed transmission and also features a manual-style 2-speed transfer case. Now, driving the Delica in the city is kind of a chore, and unfortunately that's where we are today. We are going stoplight to stoplight, and it's like, we press the gas, the car thinks about moving, then it finally moves, and then you gotta sort of hope and pray that a red light doesn't come up, because as soon as it does, you've got to do a panic stop. But these brakes don't exactly work too well, so with that panic stop, or with cars coming into your lane of traffic, or if you're in a modern car, or like a, you know, anything I'd say from a base level Kia to a, you know, 911, you'd be able to stop in time and not really have to sweat. With this, you are pretty much 100% certain you're going to crash into whatever comes in front of you. So, you know, driving the Delica is really sort of like driving a boat. I mean, it's not a typical passenger car. I mean, it's a truck, right? So there's a lot of float, there's a lot of just sort of movement in the suspension, but it doesn't feel like it's really connected to anything. It's not communicative like it would be, let's say, a sports car. So as a highway commuter, the Delica is objectively terrible. But it's so awesome, who cares? This is a ride that turns more heads than a Lambo. Only the Delica's got enough room to carry your friends and whatever else you want to throw inside. And now, because it's a 1980s 4x4 underneath, it's bouncy. It is incredibly bouncy. So this is a cab forward design, so we're pretty much riding over the front axle, so you are feeling every single bump, every single road joint, every single reflector just kind of comes up, shocks you, and, you know, lets you know what's going on. In the back, it's a solid rear axle, so again, comfort not a priority, but it's an incredibly capable off-roader. Now, personally, I spent a lot of time in Hokkaido, which is the northern island of Japan, and if you go there during the winter, it is gnarly. I mean, they don't plow the roads because as soon as they do, many, many feet of snow will just suddenly reappear. So they pretty much just, you know, let the snow dump and basically have people drive over it, so everybody is off-roading. Now underneath, yeah, it's super basic, super mechanical, it's a truck, but when you get inside, it's pretty well appointed. At least, well, it's well appointed if you look at it through the lens of its time. So up front, I mean, you do get that off-road kind of provenance. Up here, you've got your altimeter, inclinometer, and you have inside and outside temperature gauges. Also in the rear, you've got this really cool, basically a full-length moonroof that runs, you know, the length of the vehicle. So you have a center console with, you know, your lights, your different kind of control schemes. So like each seat basically gets its own moonroof. So yeah, it's kind of a gimmick, and I don't know who would use it or why it would be used, but that is something that a lot of car manufacturers tout today. So the fact that this Mitsubishi had it almost 30 years ago is pretty impressive. And again, it's built on the Pajero platform, so it will last forever while outrunning the apocalypse. I kind of want this one for a snowboard van, but it's already been sold. So that means I guess I'll have to find another sick JDM van to kickstart my career as an influencer then. Thank you so much for watching. And as usual, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Hey, what's up everybody? On today's Finally Legal, we drive a really, really cool Mitsubishi, and no, it's not an Eclipse Cross. Let's go. What's up everybody, and welcome to Finally Legal. In this series, we drive the JDM Legends that are, well, finally legal. The team at Top Rank gave us the keys to their shop and told us to take out whatever we want. So I chose a dream car of mine, this 1994 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 2. For me, the Lancer Evolution 2 is what really set the stage for what the Evo would become. This is the car that gave the Mitsubishi Lancer its first ever win in the WRC. It's also the car in which Tommi Mäkinen started his career with Mitsubishi. Every subsequent Evo went a bit too hot boy for my tastes, so to me, the Evo 2's unassuming look is just about perfect. When you look at this car, it looks like a standard 1990s Japanese Econobox sedan. Unless you know what to look for, there's nothing special about it. But if you do know what to look for, there are some strong cues that this is a high-performance machine. That hood is constructed from aluminum, helping cut weight for racing duties. Those vents are subtle, but they are very functional. Down below, that red contrast chin spoiler is actually functional too. The first Lancer Evo had a tendency to understeer at race speeds, so Mitsubishi added this to reduce airflow and therefore lift underneath the car so the front tires would have more bite. And around back, that dual level wing is pure function too. Compared to the Evo 1, it's been designed to add more downforce without adding too much drag, and I think it looks rad, and best of all, it is 100% functional. But there are no crazy fenders, decals, or other things that really shout, hey, this is a race car. It's a sleeper, and that's why it's awesome. Inside, it's straight 90s Japanese Econobox. The design is simple, and even the gauge cluster features only a tach, speedometer, temperature gauge, and gas gauge. But again, it's those small parts that let you know that this car is something special. Those Recaro seats stand out, especially with that 90s Dixie Cup print. And if you peel back the cover on the steering wheel, you'll see it's actually just a regular Momo aftermarket wheel. But hey, at least it's got an intercooler spray button. This is an Evo, so of course it's got the 4G63 under the hood. Here, it's rated at 260 horsepower, and it's mated to a 5-speed transmission. 260 ponies may seem low today, but here, this engine is a gem. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, like a well-assorted 90s Japanese sports car. This car was made in an era before computers started controlling everything, so you get in a car now, you have a computer controlling your throttle, you have a computer controlling your steering, you have a computer controlling your brakes. I mean, yeah, there's mechanical redundancies and all that, but essentially it's all electronically assisted. This is pure mechanical, and you feel every bit of it, and it just makes for a drive that's incredibly engaging and incredibly communicative. All right, let's talk power. Up front, we've got an Evo staple, the 4G63 turbocharged inline 4. Here, being a little bit older, it's rated at 260 horsepower. That's up about 10 horsepower from the Evo 1. Obviously, it's very, very, very far away from the gentleman's agreement 280 metric horsepower that later Evos had. With this being a Lancer Evolution, yeah, it's all-wheel drive. This is based off the Lancer chassis, so it's a front bias system that sends power to the rear as needed. It's purely mechanical, which is awesome for me because you get these new systems. I mean, yeah, they're amazing, but it's a computer deciding what wheel gets what power, and just sort of like playing Gran Turismo on easy mode. With all these, it's like just full assist, and it's kind of like the car is doing the driving for you. I mean, yeah, you'll turn a faster lap time, but if you're not racing, really what you want is fun. You want to feel that connection with the machine, and you've got that here. Now, one thing I really like about this Evo is the steering. Not that I can really, demonstrate it here on the straight road, but you have a lot of cars where just the steering feels really light or it feels really artificial. I mean, I blame the new electric power assist that's so common in cars today, because you need to have the computer see if you're turning out of your lane and it tries to put you back. So you have a lot of new cars try to make the car feel engaging, but it's really not. This is pure old school mechanics, or probably a hydraulic assist. So when you turn, it's just immediate. You just really feel the car want to go where you want to point it, but it's not heavy. It's really, really just easy to use. And with a car that's got this much capability, ease of use ease of use is everything. But not all is perfect. After all, this car is older than most of you, so you can tell it's lived. Mechanically, it feels fine, but the surface shows some wear and tear. The seat belts are a bit loose, meaning if I crash, I fly through the windshield. The fabric is all wrinkly, and the vent controls are loose. And horribly, and this day is incredibly hot, the AC does not work. Sweat my off, roll the window down. Oh, it's hot. I am roasting. Still, all those things can be fixed, and let's be honest, no one is buying a 26-year-old Evo expecting the comforts of a 2020 Lexus. To me, the Lancer Evo 2 is just about perfect. I can't recall the last time I've driven a car that felt this pure, and I can't remember a time I had this much fun driving a car. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Finally Legal. I feel incredibly lucky to have driven this Evo 2, and I really want to thank Top Rank for making it happen. This is YouTube, so you know the drill. Smash those like and subscribe buttons. A modified GTR is a ruined GTR. You can argue with me all you want in the comments, but you know I'm right. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Finally Legal. In this series, we drive the JDM Legends that are, well, finally legal. Okay, that opening statement was a bit hyperbolic, but the general sentiment still stands. I mean, people who modify these cars generally ruin them. But we'll get to that in a second. Now, this is a 1994 Nissan Skyline GTR V-Spec 2. All right, now I'm a big fan of the R32 GTR. I mean, not only is it the best looking of all GTRs, and that's a fact, this is the car that launched the modern era of the GTR. I mean, when we hear the letters GTR, this is the car we think about. This is the car that introduced the RB26 DETT, and this is also the car that introduced the concept of an all-wheel drive GTR. And yes, the GTR is an incredible tuning platform, but here in the West, this engine is really known for its ability to make big amounts of power. So lots of tuners chase big dyno numbers. I mean, yeah, the 1,000 horsepower GTR is actually kind of common these days, but what a lot of people don't talk about is that those 1,000 horsepower GTRs are practically undrivable. I mean, it's like big amounts of power, but the engine only worked in this like really narrow power band. See, but in Japan, the GTR built its legend on the racetrack, and the needs of a racetrack are very specific. You don't need big power, you need response, you need predictability. The car has to do what you want when you want it to. And when you have that big power car, it's like, okay, I'm gonna hit the gas, then I'm gonna wait a year for the turbos to spool, then the boost is gonna kick in, and then you drive into a tree. So that's why the owner of this GTR is keeping things more or less stock. So the car is going to be really good on a racetrack, but most importantly, it's still usable on the street. All right, let's talk about the engine. The factory RB26 has been swapped out for this. This is an RB26 DETT Nismo S1 engine. So basically, it's an RB26 DETT that's been fully rebuilt by Nismo, so it's got that performance credential, but it's also got that factory goodness. Yeah, we've got the cool valve cover, but what really sets this engine apart are the things you can't see, and it's pretty much everything inside. So all the internals are bespoke for this. The camshafts are bespoke for this. The turbos come from an R34, so not bespoke, but the turbo outlets are a larger diameter, again, to help with extra flow. All told, this engine makes about 400 horsepower, and talking with the owner, he's leaving this engine as is. I mean, anything that's going to be added to this will pretty much be just to keep it stock, to keep it reliable, to keep it predictable. I mean, after all, when you have something this amazing, why mess with perfection? So the chassis mods on this car are very, very minimal. I mean, you've got a set of Öhlins coilovers and these, JDM Bling Nismo wheels. And I'm going to get the name of these wrong, so bear with me for a sec. These are Nismo LMGT4 Limited 2 version 5 wheels. And all you really need to know is that there's only 200 sets in existence, so the chances of you getting a set for your car are about 0. Now, when you get inside this car, you're reminded that underneath this GTR exterior, it's just a basic Nissan Skyline. Now, if you don't live in Japan, the basic Skyline is actually a really, really underwhelming car. I remember my first time in Japan in the 90s, I saw a non-GTR R32 roaming the streets, and I was almost heartbroken by how boring it was. I mean, it's just basic sedan, skinny tires, massive amounts of fender gap. So the fact that Nissan took that basic car and transformed it into what the GTR is still nothing less than phenomenal. But when you get inside, it still feels like a 90s Nissan. I mean, this one in particular, the seats are from an R34, so there's a little more support. We've got a Nismo wheel, so there's a little bling there. And I mean, personally, I like the mini disc player because there's really nothing more JDM, especially 90s JDM, than a mini disc player. But, take the Nismo badges away or blindfold me and put me in the car, you can tell me I'm in a Maxima and I'd believe you. But no one buys a GTR because of how it feels inside. They buy it because of the driving experience. So, you know what? Let's get this thing on the road. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit scary. I gave it the beans, as the kids like to say, and you really feel that 400 horsepower. Man, this is awesome. So this is one of those cars that it's going to be really, really, really easy to get in trouble with. So I'm going to do my best to be responsible, but if I get the car impounded, I apologize to the good people at Top Rank. Stop having cars that are so amazing. Truth be told, this is actually my first experience driving an R32, R33, R34 chassis Skyline. I've been in the 35 a lot. This one's way better. I mean, that should go without saying because the R35 is a really digital driving experience. And one thing I kind of say in all these videos is I want that analog experience, and we get that here. But the steering is really light, just really direct. You don't really have to muscle the car around. That Öhlins suspension is really supple. The car doesn't bounce, it doesn't jolt. It's just really this well-controlled ride. It would feel stock had I not been told that it is aftermarket. Large man, tiny car. This is going to be interesting. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Finally Legal. In this series, we drive the JDM Legends that are, well, finally legal. So my good friend Kyo from SoCal Motion Vehicle Importers called me up recently. He said he saw this series of videos and that he had something we might be interested in driving. And you know what? He was absolutely right. This is a 1992 Suzuki Cappuccino. The Suzuki Cappuccino is what's known as an ABC car, and there's a lot to unpack in that statement, so let's get into it. ABC here stands for A, AutoZone AZ1, B, Honda Beat, and C, Suzuki Cappuccino. All three of these cars are K roadsters that came out of Japan's bubble era. K cars, or Keijidosha, is a Japan-only vehicle classification that basically describes a very tiny city car. K cars, by law, can be no larger than 3.3 meters long, 1.4 meters wide, and 2 meters tall. Engine size, again by law, is capped at 660 cc's, and power output can be no greater than 63 horsepower. So if you see a modern K car, they're just tall boxes, able to sit 4 adults comfortably, and they can park just about anywhere. But this Cappuccino was designed during Japan's bubble era. It was a magical time when the country was flush with cash, everyone was drunk on champagne, and reckless spending was encouraged. I mean, buying dumb, irresponsible things was encouraged, and let's be honest, that's why the bubble burst. Anyway, what's more irresponsible than a 2-seat roadster designed to carry only you and your favorite hostess? But there's still a ton of smart thinking in this car. Let's start with that roof. The Cappuccino gives you 4 different roof styles, all stock and all in one. You got your standard hardtop, T-tops, a target top, and finally, you can fold the back window down to make this car a full convertible. And for the serious driver, this Cappuccino packs a serious punch. 63 horsepower may sound weak, but when the entire car weighs just 1,500 pounds, it's more than plenty. So let's talk about that engine for a sec. No shock here, it's a 660cc 3-cylinder. But here, it also gets dual overhead cams and a turbo. And because of its compact size, it's able to sit behind the front axles, effectively making this a front midship chassis. And with the driver inside, well, at least a driver who's lighter than I am, it's said that the Suzuki has a perfect 50-50 weight balance front to rear. So essentially, that makes this Cappuccino a street-legal go-kart. It's small inside too, and for those of us who are American-sized, there's some setup needed. What surprised me is that stock, there's plenty of legroom, and the steering wheel and shifter fall into the right spots too. But in order to get me to fit, Kyo had to remove that driver's side door armrest, and as it is, my right leg still sits right on the door. Also, headroom is lacking, so I'm way hunched over when driving this thing. So, with a car this small, you'd think it would be kind of cramped, and yes and no. As you can probably tell, my head is hitting the roof here. I am 6'1", I am a bit taller than the average Japanese male, the mid-1990s. But it's still not too bad.